How's it going, you guys? Damocles here, and by popular demand, I'm going to be showing you the settings that I use in Pokemon Unite to get to Master Rank, and that I use in Master Rank still, and suggesting some settings that I think you guys should use because some of them are incredibly helpful for climbing, and I think you guys are going to want to see them and understand them. As always, like, comment, subscribe if it helps you out. You guys have been great with the support so far, so 20k subs, we're going to be giving away a eShop gift card, so make sure you subscribe and comment for stuff like that. And if you want to add me as a friend, make sure you just add me in the friends tab with my trainer ID, or you can find me on the win streak rankings at like number 3 and add me from there. It's totally up to you. But without further ado, let's hop into the actual settings. So system settings. Frame rate, you should set frame rate to high. I don't know if it's the same with Pokemon Unite, but there are a large amount of games where having lower frame rates can really affect your play, and like in some extreme cases like Destiny, for example, it can actually affect your damage output with some abilities and weapons and stuff. So I would just highly recommend setting your frame rate to high if at all possible, just to take that variable out of the equation, if it's even a possibility. And then in this specific setting menu, the only other thing that I think is not just on by default is show cooldown decimal values. I would highly suggest doing this because information is power in MOBAs, and you really want to make sure that you have every single tiny bit of information that you can possibly get. And so I can show you right here. It's going to make it so when your cooldown is coming off cooldown, you see the number down below. When it goes below 1, it's going to show the actual decimal values before it comes off cooldown. So you'll know the exact precise moment and not just have to look at the infographic. Whereas if I turn it off and I use low sweep, it's not going to be as accurate. Hey, Julian, thank you for the sub, man. Appreciate it. See how it goes to 1 and it just shows you 1. Again, it's just a tiny thing, but it really makes it's just information that you want to have, and it has no real negative effect on your gameplay, so I would highly suggest you use it. As far as the actual control settings, basic control settings, choose between lowest remaining HP value or the percent. Lately, I've been going with the percentage value. In my opinion, it's kind of like just 50-50, like what you prefer. But I've just been rocking the lowest remaining HP percent, meaning that when you are auto-targeting abilities or your basic attacks, they're going to automatically go to the lowest remaining HP percentage target. You definitely don't want closest on. That's all I can say. You definitely don't want closest on. You'll be fine with either of these. This is 100% mandatory. Switch to advanced controls, like no question about it, because it just makes your gameplay 10 times better, and you can tell when someone doesn't have this set to on because it's just, I don't know, it's just a bad look. Like you can tell because it's embarrassing if you're going and, like, I'm sure at the start of the game, maybe you guys were in this situation where like you try and hit an enemy Pokemon, but instead you actually accidentally hit a wild Pokemon. Or maybe you're at a Zapdos fight and you want to only just KO the enemy team. You don't want to actually help them with Zapdos in any way. Then you want to make sure that you can individually select if you're attacking an enemy Pokemon or a wild Pokemon. And so that's all this does, is it makes it, instead of pressing A to attack everything, you get better target selection. You press A if you only want to focus the actual enemy team, and you press B if you want to hit wild Pokemon. It's very crucial, especially in Zapdos and when you're trying to steal like Vespiquens or anything like that, because it makes it so you can select like, okay, I don't want this to hit the enemy Slowbro at Zapdos. I want to actually try and steal this Zapdos, so I press the B button instead of the A button. So definitely 100% put advanced controls on, 100% mandatory in my opinion. Automatic basic attacks, this is totally up to you. I keep it on just because I don't really see any harm in keeping it on, and it hasn't negatively affected me. Sometimes it's nice when I'm not paying attention and I'm starting off the games, because I can go and I can read chat. I can start up a fight with like a jungle buff or something like that, and I can just be doing something else. I usually don't rely on automatic basic attacks. I usually just press the attack button anyway, but I don't really have any issue with it being on, because it's not like you still have to initiate the attack. It's not like if someone just attacks you that you automatically start attacking them back. Like you physically have to initiate the attack. So I'll just demonstrate. So with Ludicolo, I press the B button and I'm automatically hitting the Ludicolo, right? But as soon as I do another command that is not that basic attack, he stops basic attacking the Ludicolo, even if the Ludicolo is hitting me. So again, I'll activate it, and now I move away. I'm just moving, and I'm not basic attacking anymore. But it's not like going to mess you up in that, like, it's not going to turn you around, or it's not going to screw you up if you're hiding in a bush, in my opinion. It's just gonna it's just there where it's like, oh man, like, oh, let me just read chat while I'm doing this like jungle real quick, and I just like can look away or whatever. But I still don't really use it that much, but it's just there, and I don't really think it hurts that much. But again, totally up to you. It's really just like, it really just depends. Boosted attack gauge, 100% mandatory, put this on. Boosted attack gauge, all it's doing is showing you every single Pokemon, their basic attacks usually work in, like, you know, unless, aside from like Garchomp in some specific cases, they you do like 1 or 2 basic attacks, and then the third attack is going to be enhanced. And do extra damage or have an extra effect. And all this is doing is it's showing you these 2 little white bars beneath my health bar, to show you what part of that basic attack chain you are in. So right now I can tell, okay, I did my first basic attack, I did my second one, which is the yellow one, and that's basically indicating to me that my next one is going to be the enhanced attack, which does more damage. And you can see that there. So right now I just hit another basic attack, and you can just see it gradually goes up. Again, something that does not negatively impact your gameplay. It just gives you more information, and you want that when you're trying to coordinate burst, or specifically, like, especially when you're playing Garchomp, you want to know when you're at maximum basic attack stacks, because that's part of his kit. Or with Talonflame, where you can kind of hold your basic attacks and like roam around. So definitely 100% put on boosted attack gauge. Lock on icon. This is one I've gotten a couple comments why I'm not using it, even though I'm playing like an 80 carry and I'm at master rank. And look, I've played MOBAs forever. Like, I understand the importance of target selection, and if this wasn't super clunky, it was implemented better, I would 100% use it. But the fact is that it's just, I don't think it's good, and it messes me up so much more than it helps. I think it's like almost like a detriment, you know, like, in all honesty. And for those of you that don't know what lock-on icon is, it basically gives you this little menu on the right side of your screen, and by using your right stick, you can individually select what targets you want to specifically attack. So if you're in a team fight, you can go and focus down, you know, the Eldegoss, or you can focus down whatever, and that is super useful in a MOBA. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not saying that's not good. Target selection is super important. The problem is, and you guys let me know in the comments, have you, like, the people that you actually see using this, have you actually seen them like actively using this to focus targets? Because in my opinion, it's just not good. It's super clunky. It prevents you from like pre-buffering where you want to aim, because you're using this instead of aiming, you're using it to lock on. I think it's super clunky. I think it's super clunky. Like, it's not responsive at all. If I'm in a team fight and I press it, like, more often than not, it will just, maybe it won't move at all. Maybe it won't select the correct target, and I end up like messing up. And I just find that it's just not useful. The only thing, and I heard some people talking about it on Reddit today, was that some people use it as like a crutch to for like better map awareness. So if someone is like walking near you, say this like Wigglytuff on the other practice team is near me, then his name will light up and it'll give me the option to actually select him. But because he's out of range, it won't let me do that. But I don't think it helps. I think it screws me up a lot more than it helps me, because when I'm in those team fights, I want my gameplay to be instantly responsive. And this lock-on system, you guys go try it out yourselves. You can, you know, if you like it, use it. It's not responsive enough for me. I want to be able to fully use my right joystick. If it's not going to be super responsive. And by using this, it prevents that, like, oh, okay, this thing's about to come off cooldown, so I want to focus it over here. Like, let me do that, because then it's just going to focus, it's going to accidentally focus another target. Or like, maybe if you're in a team fight and you want to hit the enemy Eldegoss, but there's a Slowbro, and you go and you press left on the stick, and for some reason, because it's just super buggy and it's not implemented that well, it goes and hits a Slowbro instead, then you've just wasted autos, rather than going and like trusting the low HP percentage targeting system that we set up earlier. Like, I trust this basic lock-on priority a lot more than I trust the lock-on itself. And while I wish I would love to have better target selection, I'm fine with not having it on if it means that my gameplay can be more snappy. Like, I know I can reposition and hit a lower HP target. I know that I can like walk back a team fight and just focus the targets that are in front of me, especially as playing as an AD carry like Cinderace. So I would rather just have the responsiveness and know that what I'm doing is actually what I want to do and not like some accidental screw up by the lock-on AI. So for that's why I don't use the lock-on icon. If they, improve it in the future, 100%, like, I'm all for it. It's just not that good in its current implementation, in my opinion. And you guys can tell me, I mean, it's not going to change my opinion, but you guys can, I'm really curious, like, let me know, the people that you actually see use this, how often are you actually seeing them like mid-team fight, like swapping lock-on targets and stuff? Or do you just see it on their screen and like maybe they'll use it once at the beginning of the team fight and they won't use it anytime after? Because like that's what I see by most people, and like for me, like I want to have that snappiness, I want to have the instantaneous response, and I just don't get it with the lock-on system. I just don't think it's implemented well at all, and so for that reason, like I can't suggest using it. But again, it's something that's like personal preference. I just don't think it's 100% needed. Well, I do think it's 100% needed. I just don't think it's 100% needed with this kind of implementation. Let me put it that way. Target selection, very important. This type of target selection, it's super buggy, and it gets me into so much more trouble than it does. But I do turn it on from time to time just to try it and practice, try to get it to work, but I just don't really like it. So, sorry, end rant, but that's a really important one that a lot of people ask about, and I just don't think it's that great. In-motion pursuit distance. This is kind of related to the in-motion pursuit mode, where if you are not near any Pokemon and you start like attacking and stuff like that, it's going to go and it's going to make you walk it back and basically start attacking those Pokemon. I turn it off, but again, it's one of those like weird buggy things where like it kind of like still activates even with it turned off. The standard versus melee, I honestly don't 100% know like what this is referring to, because it's basically just the setting itself is just like, oh, it makes your Pokemon automatically approach an attack if it's outside of attack range. And like, as you can see right now, I have it, but it's in motion. So if I'm kiting away, right? Like, so right now, if I stand outside of the basic attack range of Scorbunny, okay, you can see my basic attack range right now. If I step a little bit in to that Aipom, it's going to walk me towards that target. Okay, see how it does that? But if I'm moving, it's not going to do that because my in-motion pursuit is off. Okay, and you want that, especially if you're playing. I just think you want that in general, because what you don't want is if you're running away from an enemy, which happens all the time as a carry, you want to kite away from people, especially like melees, like your Crustles and Machamps and stuff. If I'm walking backwards, I don't want my Pokemon to stop and just continuously turn around as I'm kiting backwards. I want them to go the direction that I want them to go. So I have it set to off so that when I'm doing that, it just keeps walking backwards. It doesn't go and do the little turnaround and do this like automatic, like movement type thing. Okay, so I would suggest having that set to off. Scoring controls, press button, 100%. Press button just makes it so instead of holding down the X button like you normally would for scoring a goal, you just press it one time and it will score the goal automatically. I think it's better to be able to just press the button and not have to what's the word? Like invest a finger into holding this button down for no reason, because sometimes stuff happens. Like sometimes you look away and you think that you did it, but you didn't. Just use the press button. One button solutions are always better. Thank you guys for the sub, by the way. That's just my suggestion. Okay, Pokemon move controls. Camera follows moves. I think this is really, really helpful. And I'm not going to say it's mandatory, but I think that I would highly, highly suggest that you use it. It basically makes it, it's hard for me to demonstrate on Cinderace, but basically if you have like a longer range move, it's going to make it so the camera shifts slightly towards where you're aiming that move, so you can see more of the screen where the move is actually going to land. It allows you to be a little bit more precise with your aiming, especially when it comes to longer range attacks. So I would definitely suggest turning it on, because it's not going to hurt you at all. It's just going to, again, give you a little bit more information, make your movements more precise. So I would definitely suggest putting that on. Move aim follows movement. This is, and I will talk about this with move aim snaps to nearby targets. Move aim follows movement is really useful when it comes to like actual movement abilities, like low sweep, for example, where it's a dash, because it's going to make it so you have a little bit more control over how you're actually using your abilities. So normally, right, I have move aim snaps to nearby targets because I think it's useful. I think it gives me two options instead of just one option of manually aiming a target, right? So if I go and I'm standing next to, let's say, this Ludicolo, okay? If I'm standing next to this Ludicolo, he's the nearest target, so when I press my my Ember, it's automatically going to center itself on him. And I think that's very useful because, again, if I don't have to, if I'm not looking to target him, and I don't want to aim at him, it's very simple for me to go and just hold down this button and pre-aim like where I want this to go. But I want to have that option if I'm in the middle of like a 1v1 or 1v2 and I need it to be snappy and instantaneous. I don't need to be thinking about this. I don't need to be aiming this preemptively. I just want to go right onto the target that I want. And in a similar vein, low sweep is a movement ability. And so maybe I don't want to, even though it does damage, if I'm in an intense fight, maybe I don't want it to immediately go onto the target. So in my current setup, low sweep is going to snap to target. It's going to snap to the nearest one, which is Ludicolo. But if I am moving, my low sweep is going to go and it's going to target the direction that I'm moving in, so that it basically gives me two options. I can either go and use that snap to target, or if I'm moving, it's going to make it so I can more easily dodge and I don't have to actually manually aim. That makes sense? So again, it's just something where it's like, it's giving me multiple options in a particular situation. Either I can have that quick snappy option where I'm in an intense 1v1 and I need all my abilities to like immediately be kind of aimed at the target. Yeah, you're probably going to want to still manually aim some of them, but if I just need to like, oh man, I got to get this Ember off just before, I can just press it once and it's there. And the same thing goes with low sweep. It's like, oh man, I'm dodging. Like, I don't want it to go straight to that target, so I can go and just, all right, I'll immediately switch, and it'll go in the direction I'm actually moving. I hope that makes sense to you guys. It's basically just giving you more options to play around with. You basically have that quick option, and you have that manual option that is still fast and still responsive, but it's not. You have a little bit more freedom of where you're choosing. I just would rather have that than just have one option alone, if that makes sense. So for that reason, I have both of these turned on. Move learning controls, single button, 100%. I think this is put on by default. You don't want to have to press extra buttons to upgrade your moves. You see a running theme here where it's like you want to keep things as efficient as humanly possible. You want to keep them as snappy as possible, because these games, they balance on a knife's edge, right? Like you want it to be instantaneous. Camera sensitivity. I would highly suggest you turn this up as high as you possibly can, within reason. I had mine set to like the absolute maximum, but I found that it was almost a little bit too sensitive with the Nintendo Switch controls, so I moved it down just slightly. And basically what you should be doing in every single game, again, knowledge and information is important, is you want to be using this left trigger, and you want to be looking around the map like at all times. You want to understand what's happening in other maps, in other lanes, especially if you're in the jungle. You want to know like what's happening at different objectives, so you should be doing this all the time, right? Like if I was just here living my own life in this in my jungle, and I'm thinking about going to Dreadnought, or I'm thinking about going to Rotom, I want to know, like, okay, the bottom lane, I can't see them on the map, but I see that Dreadnaught's getting hit, or oh, look, the enemy team's on Zapdos. You want this to be as quick as possible, or to be able to see, like, oh, my teammates are in a fight, like, what's the best situation? How can I best, like, navigate getting there? So at default, this is put on like super low, and it is like agonizingly slow. It's like molasses. You want to put this up at a fairly decent speed so that you still have control over it, but that it's still really fast. And for me, I just found that the absolute maximum setting was like a little bit too sensitive. So I would just put it maybe just a touch under the maximum setting. Panel placement for minimap, that's totally up to you. I just keep it top left of my screen because that's what I played with it in beta, and I think that's just decent. And then aim assist controls. I honestly, with this off or on, I don't notice too much of a difference. I set it to off just because, again, I really don't notice too much of a difference. It's meant to like try and assist people who, who are having trouble aiming, and just to give you a little bit more forgiveness. But I just don't think it's super necessary. I would just turn it off and just play with it like that. It's really just like some of these settings. Aim assist, if you don't know, it just kind of helps with targeting. It gives you a little bit like more, what's the word I'm looking for, like magnetism, and sometimes that can lead to slowness in like reactions and stuff. So I just set it to off, and honestly, you really probably won't notice much of a difference. But that's like the last actual like control setting that I was planning on talking about. I don't want to get into the actual like specific like controller mapping and stuff like that, because I feel like that's like really like a personal thing. There's nothing like specifically, like I just play with default mappings, but I could definitely see, and I've thought about like changing some of the like basic attack options to be on other buttons so that I don't have to use my thumb, and I can just fully aim all my abilities while I'm using basic attacks. But for the time being, I'm just using default controls, and I think the default controls are still pretty nice. That's going to be it for my settings video, guys. Let me know if you have any questions or you need any clarification. I'm sorry if this video went on a little bit long, but I wanted to just give you, like, I try to be as specific as possible and be honest as possible. Like, some of the stuff just seems really buggy. Some of the stuff doesn't seem to work at all. Some of the stuff you can't even really tell. So just, experiment, take it into practice, and try it yourself. And please let me know what you think about lock-on, because target selection is super important in MOBAs, like super important. And it's killing me that I can't use this, but I just really don't like it. I think it's like almost a detriment to play. So let me know what you guys think down below. As always, thank you so much for the support. We just hit 15K. That's amazing. And make sure you stay tuned. We're going to be doing some lives, like a bunch of live streams coming up. And the new patch is going to be dropping tomorrow, so I'm definitely going to be testing that out. That's going to be it for me, guys. Damocles out.